Today I'm going to make this video to show off my current ThinkPads. We're starting off, we have the oldest one right here. This is the A21p from 2000. Let's see, it's A21p. Camera is ass, because this is a 7-year-old Android phone. I like it because I'm into smaller phones, because my tiny ass hands, gotta use them one-handed. This is pretty unreliable. Sometimes it doesn't turn on. Let's see if it turns on. Yeah, this time it does not turn on. Sometimes it turns on, sometimes it doesn't. Even if it does turn on, the screen shuts off after a few minutes. Tried swapping the inverter, seeing if that would fix it, but it didn't. But yeah, probably gonna retire this and get like a 390 of some kind to replace it. This one has optical drive and floppy drive, which is nice. I like this one. It's a shame that these 20 series are unreliable. The 30 and 40 series have their own issues, but I'd say they're not as bad as the 20 series. This one is pretty unreliable. Yeah, issues. Which this one didn't even come with a display bezel. I had to salvage one from Parts Machine, and here is this Parts Machine. This is the A21e. This one has the same problem as this one, where it wouldn't turn on that old blink of death thing, except this one is permanent. I bought it for parts, mainly to get the display bezel. Also swap the inverter to see if that would fix it, but this inverter fixed that. But the thing is, the E and P models have a bigger inverter than the E and M models have the bigger inverter than the P models, so the A20 series. And the A20 series have a metal piece to accommodate the smaller inverter, so I couldn't actually fit the inverter in this. So I had to buy an A20p inverter off eBay, and it kind of made the display shut off problem even worse. But I got a bezel off this. This is like a parts machine. Another thing I forgot to mention, another thing I want to mention about the A21E is there were actually two variants of it. This one is the type 2628, which is the same size as the other A series. The A21E had a smaller type 2655, which was pretty much like a quote unquote R21, similar to the R series. And the A22E is just the smaller one. And another thing I forgot to mention about the A21p is the specs. This one has a Pentium 3 copper mine at 850 megahertz, 256 megs of RAM. This one, I forgot the hard drive I put in this. It's running Windows Me right now, which it was a pain in the ass to get Windows Me on here. I'd use a recovery disk meant for a completely different ThinkPad just to get Windows Me on here. And also another thing that's funny is this came with a working battery, though barely. In the time it takes to take a picture on my phone and upload it to Discord, this battery dies. I'm not even kidding. It's pretty funny. So that's what I want to say about my A20 series. They're nice, just not reliable. Another thing I want to talk about, the A21p has, for the graphics card, it's an ATI Rage Mobility 128. So we're moving on to the next era of ThinkPads. These are my A30s, which these are honestly probably my favorite era of ThinkPads. I like A30s. I technically have 4 of these. It's just this one has a supervisor password, and so does this one. And then this one will turn on, but this connector for the display does not work. So I just use it for parts. But this A30 is the only one that works because I bought all 4 of these at the same time. This one was originally complete. I just parted the crap out of it. So about this A30 that actually works. For the specs, it has I'm running OpenBSD on it. For the CPU, it's a Tualatin Pentium 3 clocked at 933 megahertz. I have 384 megabytes of RAM installed, upgraded from the initial 128, because I had Windows XP on this, and Windows XP on this with the 128 megs of RAM is just a nightmare. And also the graphics card is an ATI Mobility Radeon 7000. So, and another thing I want to talk about with these laptops, the A30s, is how thick they are. Because people say like the T60, T420, P series, crap like that are thick. Those are thin pads. Let me show you an actual thick pad. Just gonna unplug this bitch. Look at that. That's what I call a thick pad. Also, the display, the A21p has a 1600 by 1200 display, which is nice, but honestly, for that era, I just feel like 1024 by 768 just makes more sense. This A30 has the lowest end display option. It's the 14-inch 1024 by 768 panel. See here, it has like big bezels because it's a 14-inch panel. And yeah, but the reason why this is my favorite generation of ThinkPads, it's not because of how thick they are. No. It's because you see this, it's an optical drive, and we have a floppy drive, but unlike on the A20s, both drives are modular. This thing has 2 Ultra Bays, and so do these, which is pretty freaking epic if you'll ask me. Moving on, we have the A30 successor. This here is the A31, and this retains pretty much like the same thickness, dual Ultra Bays, everything. This is just an A30 with a Pentium 4. In this case, it's a Pentium 4M, clocked at 1.7 gigahertz, and also the graphics card's better. ATI Mobility Radeon 7500 as opposed to 7000. This one only has 256 megs of RAM, which in this case it's actually DDR RAM. A30 takes PC 133. And another thing I want to touch on is, of course, the parts. A30, most of the parts went to this because this was a problem laptop. Like these like Ultra Bay ejection levers. You can't see that. Whatever, the Ultra Bay ejection levers on both Ultra Bays would just pop out randomly. It was annoying, and also the card bus cool ejection buttons didn't pop out, and the speakers were dead on this laptop, so I had to get them all from the parts. A30. This one does not have a working OS on it. I tried to put OS 2 on here, but could only get the audio driver working, and I tried messing with the other drivers, and I ended up bricking the OS 2 install on here. I kind of want to try OS 2 again, but maybe later. Moving on, we have the T60p, aka the Cooler Daniel version of the T60. And this one is really good. I like this. It has basically, the specs are a Core 2 Duo T7600 that I put in it. I had to upgrade the CPU in this. 4 gigs of RAM. ATI FireGL V5200. And also this has a 1600 by 1200 IPS screen, which I really love. I mainly use this ThinkPad for XP era gaming. Mainly Toho. I like Toho. I suck at it though. Which I have Embodiment of Scarlet Devil and Perfect Cherry Blossom, which I've not played Perfect Cherry Blossom yet. I just put it on here today, and it's pretty sure it's a corrupted copy because some of the text is glitch. But then Embodiment of Scarlet Devil, I've been playing it for a week now. And I'm trying to beat normal with 2 continues. Do it on 3. Which I actually got pretty close to beating normal with 2 continues, because I got 99% of the way there. I was on the final fucking phase of Vermilion Scarlet. like I died. Like I was like so close to beating it with 2 continues. But I'm getting better. This right here is my X201. And this thing has no trackpad because it's so small. Actually, just kidding. Trackpads are actually available, just optional, and this specific model does not have one. I actually have Windows Vista on here, but I screwed something up and it now takes like 3 minutes to boot up. Like, it's ridiculous. I don't really use this much. I'm not a fan of the like small ThinkPads. I know a lot of people like them. They're just not for me. I like bigger screens. Specs of this goes as follows. This has an Intel i5 M520, which I want to talk about one of my pet peeves. Like this generation of CPUs, they like get the naming. People get the naming scheme screwed up. Like they say like i5 520M, like it's one of the more modern ones. It's a fucking i5 M520. Get it right. Like I hate it when people screw that up. It's probably just my autism. 6 gigs of RAM. This had 2 initially, which is for something this modern is pretty stupid. I actually had gotten an X201 for parts off eBay because the like screen in this, the backlight killed itself. You know, the backlight killed itself and it was just like super dim. So I replaced the screen and it had a 4 gig stick of RAM, so I used that to upgrade the RAM in this as well. And I installed a webcam, being as that X201 had a webcam. Okay, we have the W510 and W520, which these are both pretty similar. W510 I actually got first. It was free, so it has like crack there. The hinge is kind of messed up, the left hinge is, and the USB ports, that USB port's dead. And the W510 is running Linux. Fedora KDE span, just have a Windows 7 skin on it. And the specs of this goes as follows. It has i7 Q720, 16 gigs of RAM, and a Quadro FX 880M. The W520 I got a bit after. I'm running Windows 7 on this. I got this after the W510. It's sort of my daily driver, because I don't really have like anything better that works anymore. Not really my daily driver, just my main laptop, because I have a like beast desktop with like 16 cores. It's 32 threads. It's insane. And the specs of this one are i7 2960XM, 16 gigs of RAM, and then NVIDIA Quadro 2000M. Which I put Linux on this, but I want to, like, this is running Nuvo, and I want the proprietary drivers on this because this is sort of my best option. I put Linux on it, but the proprietary drivers are going to be annoying. I'd have to, like, downgrade my kernel. Tried getting it, it's not really worth the hassle, in my opinion. Which, one thing you might be wondering is, why couldn't you have just gotten a W530 and Classic Keyboard modded it? Well, I don't actually recommend doing a Classic Keyboard mod for the 30 series because it's kind of annoying. You have to like sand down the keyboard tabs and like apply tape to the like keyboard pins, which I don't really trust myself doing that. And also the caps, once you do that, being as the 30 series don't have a caps lock LED, the caps lock LED won't work with the Classic Keyboard. It won't. So, yeah. And also the track point buttons will like tend to kill themselves on the if you Classic Keyboard mod a 30 series. So if you want Classic Keyboard, I'd suggest get a W520. Also, the 30 series got rid of the plug and unplug beeps, which on these they're optional. And I like the plug unplug beeps, so why the hell did you remove them if they were optional? So another thing I want to mention about the W510 is it has a, you can't really tell, this has a cat's tongue style track point from the IBM days. which I got that from an A30. I went from a T430S that we'll get to next, and then it went to the W520, but then I broke it. Like, it got rid of the texture, so I just put in the W510. So, yeah, which the W520 was $150, which it has the Quadro 2000M, which those usually go for like $300 or closer to. It's expensive. Like, you could get like a P51 for like cheaper than most Quadro 2000M W520s. Like, it's ridiculous. So, I also want to put 32 gigs of RAM. This says 16, but I want 32. Like, one time, using, not this, but using another ThinkPad with 16 gigs of RAM, I got it to 12 gigabytes used at once, having a virtual machine and, some browser tabs. So, yeah, I can barely survive on 16. Yeah, first world problems. Am I right? But yeah, I'd like to put 32 gigs of RAM in this. And maybe core boot it so I can do Ivy Bridge CPUs. But I like W520s, I like W510s. Another thing I want to rant about these is the speakers, which are just absolute dog shit. Yeah. My T60p, my T60p has better speakers than these. I'm not even kidding. Holy. Why are these? Well, at least they're up firing. I hate down firing speakers because, if you're actually using it as a laptop on your lap, the speakers are gonna get, covered up and sort of muffled. So, yeah, and also another thing, I feel like classic keyboard mod might be worth it if you're more attached to the layout. First ThinkPad that we'll get into eventually is it was actually a 6-row ThinkPad, but I still prefer the 7-row. I just don't mind the 6-row layout. My only major gripe with the 7, not the 7-row, my major gripe with the 6-row is they removed this. This is awesome. Because if you're like me, using the track point, which I literally have the trackpad disabled on all my ThinkPads that have them in BIOS. If you're using the track point, even with my tiny ass hand, you see how I can reach the back button with my pinky finger? That is so freaking convenient. I cannot tell you how convenient it is. And the stupid 30 series 6-row keyboards removed that. What a shame. Also, love it or hate it, I have a pretty silly custom boot screen on my W520. Let me show you. And here is my T430S, which the speakers on this are not much, but noticeably better than my W series. So I kind of thought about modding the speakers from this into this W520. But problem is that speakers won't actually fit from this, they're different. Also, this does not have an operating system, because I took doesn't even have an SSD. I took the SSD, I put in this out. I put it in the T60p and installed Antix Linux on it and attempted to daily drive it for a day. That was successful. It's actually surprisingly usable. The T60p is surprisingly usable on the internet. It's just slow. And the specs of this are i7-3520M, 8 gigs of RAM, and an NVIDIA NVS 5200M, which, of course, yeah, this is a 6-row layout. Don't mind it, but they put page up here. Could've, I wouldn't even mind if they just, got rid of these entirely and just had back and forward here. I don't even care about the forward key. Back key is what I like. So, yeah, this is my T430S. Honestly, this is actually probably better, like more practical than a T430. Because it's like a lot lighter than a T430, and also the problem with this is like the CPU is soldered, so you can't replace the CPU, so you're stuck with dual cores, which is honestly like a quad core and a T430 will just run like stupidly hot. Even this W520 with its 55-watt i7-2960XM will run hotter, not it'll run cooler than a T430 with a 35-watt quad core. I'm not even kidding. Also, another thing I forgot to mention with the T430S is the screen is a higher end 1600 by 900, which with my W series are 1920 by 1080. And also, this battery is like it's an aftermarket battery that I like bought with it, and it only gets like it's degraded now, and it only gets an hour on a full charge. Which I mean, it's not the A21p battery, which here is that battery, but like this is pretty bad. Like, also another problem with this I want to mention, speaking of the batteries, is that I like my T60p, X201, W510, W520 are all like this. The like battery is the bigger 9-cell battery that sticks out the back. I love these because these are a freaking handle and it's so convenient. Highly recommended. But honestly, like if you want like a quad core T430, to get a W530 or like T530 at the very least, because it'll run like a lot cooler. Unless you really need a 14-inch quad core, like 30 series ThinkPad or 20 series ThinkPad, then go with the. Unless you need 14-inch, you go with the 15-inch ones because they're better. And I prefer 15-inch laptops. Also, on the screen, even though this is the higher end screen, it's actually like worse than like any display in the T430 and T420, which is pretty wild. Like the colors on this are just like garbage. Like even like W520 and W510 have really good colors. T60p are like nothing outstanding, but they're decent. But these are just garbage. The only ThinkPads I can think of that are worse than that in terms of like displayage is a X300 or X301, and also the second screen on the W700DS. I've heard it's just absolutely awful, and I've heard that the W701DS, which I want either of those, they're pretty cool. Like either the W701DS like fixed that. So I don't really use this much. This is what got me into ThinkPads. My previous ThinkPad didn't really get me into ThinkPads. Stupid bug. Like, this is the one, like, I bought this. So getting into Linux. Got this, I wanted a ThinkPad, fell for the meme. So yeah, this is the first one that got me into ThinkPads. It was my second ThinkPad total. Now it's time to show off my actual first ThinkPad. This is, of course, a 6-row keyboard, which this is a tiny keyboard, so I get hand cramps when actually like typing on this. This is my ThinkPad Twist. I only still keep this because this is my first ever ThinkPad, so I have emotional attachment to it. But other than that, like it's abused. Like this, like I owned this like since I was like 3 or 4, and like there's like cracks from like me abusing it, which I'm glad that I got a ThinkPad and not like anything like crap, because if it was something crap, like it would have died. So yeah, this one's running Windows 8.1. For the specs, it has an i5-3317U, which sucks. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, like, like if I try to watch a YouTube video on this, it uses 85% of the CPU. Also, another thing that sucks about this is the Wi-Fi, which is actually one of the few ThinkPads with a Wi-Fi card that does not work on Linux. So if you want to use Linux, it's a shame because this would make a pretty like Linux tablet. If you want like a Linux tablet, get like an X220 tablet or X230 tablet. Not this. This is a low tier ThinkPad. Like it's fine, but it's a low-end ThinkPad. Like, also, it only has 4 gigs of RAM, but mainly the CPU is the main bottleneck. Like 85% usage on YouTube is stupid. But yeah, but I only have this just because I have emotional attachment to it. Also, this one's funny because normally the ThinkPad arrow keys like extend like downward a bit. On these, they do not. Moving on to the next one I don't like. This is the X1 Carbon Gen 2, which I got this after the T430S. And it's the battery is like dead right now, so I'm not going to bother turning it on. Which a lot of people say, like not a lot of people, like someone said that the T440S is the worst ThinkPad. This is a T440S's even worse cousin. Like it has the same just like awful trackpad. Like I hate this. Like when I use a track point, like this feels like ass, and trackpad's even like worse if I want to use that. And also, but yeah. And it has soldered RAM just like the T440S. It doesn't have a dock port like the T440S. This is the worst part of it all. The touch bar. Like, what the hell was Lenovo thinking putting a touch bar on this? It's kind of ass. Like, even worse than Apple's touch bar. Plus, they did it before Apple. Apple introduced their touch bar in 2016. This is 2014. Lenovo did it first. And the layout is weird. Like, what's this? Keyboard layout's weird. Like, and what's this? It's pretty dumb. 5-row keyboard. So, and the specs are i5 4300U, and at least it has 8 gigs of RAM. Oh yeah, and another thing I forgot to mention, the display. It's 2560 by 1440, which that on a 14-inch laptop is overkill. Like, I mean, like, 1920 by 1080 on the W520, honestly, that's enough. Like, I can take advantage of this resolution on, like, a 15-inch laptop, get some nice extra screen real estate, but on this, it's, like, pretty cramped. I actually am using 4K on my main desktop. I'm using, like, a big 50-inch 4K TV. It's my main system. So, yeah. But hey, at least it's IPS. So another thing I forgot to mention, the T430S's TN panel, and as well as the T430 and T420, their viewing angles are awful. Which, another thing I completely forgot to mention, or at least I'm pretty sure I completely forgot to mention about the A31, is that it has a 1400 by 1050 panel, though it's not the IPS one, unfortunately, but hey, at least it's 1400 by 1050, and not 1024 by 768, which is awful, though not as bad as 1366 by 768 on the Twist, and also 1280 by 800 on the X201. I can't tell if it's worse or better, but I don't like that lower resolution. Here is what's supposed to be my daily driver, but I sort of broke. The hell did Firefox open? This here is my P51. I'm just gonna cover this bit up just in case if it doxes me. Because with the W series, I actually had to like re-record that because like kept like displaying the W510 like kept like outputting the Wi-Fi network name, which like bruh. So P51. I'm just gonna shut this. So P51 has a 3840 by 2160 display, which is really good. I have it set to 150 scaling, so it's the same as 1440p. And also has 16 gigs of RAM, and which this was the one I was doing with the 16 gig of RAM, like using 12 gigs of it. And the CPU is an Intel Xeon E3 1535M V6. And, like, people say this is a chunk. Like, if you want a chunk pad, you get an A30, not a P51 or a T420. Like, yeah, people say, like A30, like, probably eats, like, T420s for breakfast. Like, it's that freaking chunky. But yeah, P51 Problem with this was I tried to upgrade the RAM and this, but the thing is, if, like, newer models move to like a new style of ribbon cables, which are just like extremely stupid. So I'm trying to get to the internal RAM slots, and my stupid ass thought you had to take the palm rest off. So I tried taking the palm rest off, and I ended up breaking some of like ribbon cable, like black things in the process. So the trackpad doesn't work, and nor does the track point. So this is only usable with an external mouse now, so that's why I'm using the W520. Like, this was my daily driver, and it would be if I hadn't, like, goofed up like that. Screw you, 16 gigs of RAM, which it has, like, two easily accessible RAM slots. The problem was I tried putting RAM in those, and it wouldn't boot, so I wanted to try the internal RAM slots. What a shame. Also, I completely forgot to mention this, but my P51 has, for the graphics card, NVIDIA Quadro M2200M.